Good evening and welcome to this week's Hawk Talk. This week we have a concurrent event. We have Navigating the Path to Health-Related Careers, and we also have an Introductions to All Things Global, a session about international education. I'm joined tonight by Professor Andy Koch I didn't ask which department you were in.
Chemistry and biochemistry.
Chemistry and biochemistry. And we also have Aurora Margarita Goldcamp here from International. So these two sessions will be concurrent. Dr. Koch will start off and provide some information about health-related careers, and then we'll transition to international education. This session is recorded, so please be aware of that. We ask that you turn your cameras off during the session and put any questions that you might have into the chat, and we will answer them from there. So without any further ado, I will pass it off to Professor Koch.
Hi, well, I go by Andy. It's usually hard to get the students to call me Andy, but I still prefer that. So yeah, just a little bit, first about me. I've been at St. Mary's for longer than I want to admit, since 1997. And I teach organic chemistry as my specialty, which means that anyone who's thinking about the health sciences is probably going to take a course with me. And I certainly know what the biggest hurdles academically are for getting into medical school, vet school, dentistry. Those were sort of the main branches of the health sciences that I was familiar with. And a few years ago, I took over as our health science advisory committee chairman, which really means I am the health science advisory committee. That role for me, and I'll just point out that I am compensated for doing that role. So I get a course and a half teaching release so that I have time during both the semesters to meet with students who are interested in one of the postgraduate health fields. And I am paid over the summer to help mentor our students as they apply to these programs. So a little bit about the college. We're a small liberal arts college. We have the traditional liberal arts degrees. We are not a major university who spins off degrees that are designed to sort of attract particular groups of students. So I have seen all sorts of pre-med, pre-vet, pre-dental majors, and just to name a few. And I see what those majors entail. And it's basically taking the prerequisite courses along with suggested courses and then some to round off what would be necessary to fulfill a major, and then they market it. Now, there are some fields of healthcare that I'd say that that's a pretty reasonable pathway. For most of them, I don't think that it helps you one little bit to have a major or something associated with one of the health professions as an undergraduate. And since most of our students are interested in physicians, I'm going to use that as an example, though I don't want to come across as sending the message that I'm here to support people wanting to go to medical school. No, I'm here to support our students who want to go into any health-related field. So these fields really value students who are well-rounded. Yes, you have to take the prerequisite courses and you have to earn A's in those prerequisite courses. And that's hard, okay? But that's really quite challenging to get straight A's through those required courses. So there's in their programs, along with our programs, we have plenty of upper level what we call hard science classes that are designed for students who didn't necessarily get the A's in the prerequisite courses to take those and prove that they can get A's in these types of courses and be competitive for medical school. So the college keeps a pre-health person, myself right now, in charge of mentoring and guiding our students. Why? Because these programs are challenging, very challenging to get into, that you can certainly look up the prerequisites on your own, but they really, to be successful, require someone hounding you. So yeah, I'm dad when it comes to that. I give fatherly conversations with our students all the time about where you are, where you want to get to, and how to get there. And that's basically takes me sort of through an advisory role for our students for the first couple of years. We have a very active pre-med, pre-vet, we don't have pre-dental club yet, but most of the students that are interested in dental join the pre-med club because they do really, they take anyone interested in the health field under their wings. And I go to their meetings regularly. I'm actually their faculty liaison. And I just keep them on track, keep them focused on what they need to be doing, what courses they need to be taking, and what they also need to be doing just on their own time to make them competitive for the programs they're interested in. So I have collected an incredible amount of information on all different types of programs. No, I do not know everything about them. I don't think anyone knows everything about them. I know an awful lot, and when I get a question that I don't know the answer to, I'm honest about that, and I look it up and we find the answer together. Where I really kick into high gear with our students, and this is especially true for students who are doing pre-medicine, pre-vet, and pre-dentistry. Those three professions are looking for what they call a committee letter for a student's file. So you've undoubtedly had people write you letters of recommendations before. This is not a letter of recommendation. What I do is collect a admissions file, everything that our students are putting together to apply to these types of schools. They send me copies. I give them constructive, honest feedback about that. So we undergo iterations. But more to the point, I'm gathering all the information that's going to be in their admissions file. We interview our students. It's usually two other faculty members and myself, and that's where we hence call the committee. You would pick two faculty members to join your committee, and we interview our students. They tend to last 2 hours, sometimes longer. And we do this for two reasons. One is the reason it lasts 2 hours is because we really want to hone in on interview skills. Now, the college, there's plenty of opportunities for you to pick up interview skills along the way. For the health professions, it's a little different. They're really a little more narrow focused, and we know exactly what they want from their candidates as far as answers to their questions. So it's a little bit of debriefing from general interview practices. Not that those aren't really good starting points, but a refinement for this is how you really want to sell yourself if you want to go into something like medicine, any of the areas of medicine. And on top of that, the other reason they last 2 hours is I'm gathering more information. I'm getting the stories of our students and why, not just, that they've progressed to the point where they're ready to apply to medical school or vet school or dental school or physical therapy. Yeah, I'm getting the big picture of who they are and how they came along this pathway and the ups and downs that they saw along the pathway to this. And in my committee letter, it is written in an evaluation of their application. And these committee letters tend to be 4 to 5 pages long. Okay, 4 to 5 pages analyzing our candidate's application, and just playing to their strengths and addressing weaknesses. And everybody has weaknesses. Okay, and pointing to the information to show the admissions committee why this particular candidate is not a risk of not making it through their program and the type of person they want in their program. I also collect typically about a half dozen letters of recommendations from faculty and employers and whoever that our students have worked with over the last few years. And when I do an analysis of a character trait of our student based on what I see in their folder, I go back to letters of recommendation and I point to like 3 other people who will back up my analysis through their observations of the person in the classroom, on the job, volunteering, what have you. So these letters are really quite complex. They are an honest assessment of our students. And if I'm feeling really, really good about your file, I say there's no problems about getting into a program. If I'm sort of hesitant about where our student stands and the program they're interested in, I point to ways of strengthening. If they decide to apply even without strengthening, I still support them. Okay, still support them 100%. And if they're successful, and it's happened, that I have recommended that they strengthen before applying, and they started to strengthen, but they applied anyways. And sometimes they're successful, sometimes not, but that's all right. As long as they're taking the advice and strengthening while they're doing the application, we just go through the whole rigmarole the next cycle. So we boast between about, well, we've had acceptance rates of 100%. That was a while ago. That's very rare. Okay, it's hard to get into these types of programs, and we have a lot of students who don't always take our advice. So out of the students, we tend to see about a 70 to 90 something percent acceptance rate for our students. That is incredibly good compared to the national average. Okay, now I'd like to just put our program or our support into context of other schools, both small and large. So 2 years ago, before COVID, I had the opportunity to go to Penn Dental on their dollar. They housed me for 2 days along with about 30 other people who mentored pre-health people. They were focused on the dentistry, but all of these people did all of the sciences. And we learned a little. I knew most of what they were talking about, but we learned a little bit more about getting students into dental programs. And of course, they tried to sell Penn along the way. The one thing that I really took out of that was, out of the 30 or so people that were involved in mentoring students through the process of applying, there were only two of us that were faculty, okay? And I knew the other faculty member. He was a faculty member at the graduate level at George Mason, and he had come to St. Mary's to sell their, what they call their G squared, George Mason, Georgetown post-bac program for students who show a lot of promise, but aren't quite competitive enough to get into medical school. They offer a certificate or a master's program, and some of our students have utilized that program and have then gone on to medical school. So I knew him personally. He had come down to St. Mary's a couple of times to talk to our pre-health students. All the other people there were career advisors, okay? And I don't want to belittle being a career advisor. They know an awful lot, but from conversations, the one thing I saw that puts us ahead of that road is that for medicine, vet, dental, any of those fields, that advice is so much more accessible to students if it comes from someone they already know. It's really hard. It's a big barrier for students to go and seek advice from someone they've never seen before, don't know, as opposed to, here's this guy that taught me organic chemistry. I didn't do well in his class, but he taught me organic chemistry. And, now I know this person. And at St. Mary's, I teach some of the largest classes, some of the smallest classes. I know every student in my class by like the second week of classes. I can call on everyone by first name. Yeah, it takes me a little while to get first and last name, but I can call on you by first name within the first couple of weeks of classes. So there's no real barrier for the students to come seek out the advice. The other thing I noticed is that, and this applied to even small schools that, small liberal arts schools that were there, they had usually typically policies that if you had to meet certain criteria before you could come get advice from the advisor, or maybe not advice, but go through that whole committee process. I do not hold that. I tell you what you need to do. And I just gave one of those interviews last week to a student who hadn't gotten me half of the things she was supposed to, and I yelled at her, but we still went through the interview, and I still gave her the advice, and I'm still writing the letter, and I'm yelling at her to get this stuff to me so I can write the letter. But we don't put hurdles in. The other thing that I noticed is that many schools will only do this for current students, which is a real shame because it's fewer and fewer the number of students who are actually applying while they're still in college. It's much more common now to take gap years in between college and especially medical school. So we don't have that. Okay. We mentor our alums just as much as we mentor our current students. And some other schools had a 3-year limit that you could come back up to 3 years after graduating and still access the service. We have no limit. My predecessor, Dr. Karen Crawford in biology, still holds the record. 10 years out, someone came back to her and said, you were right. I'm not really thrilled being a nurse. I need to be the doctor. And they are a doctor now. So we're here. I mean, we're a small, tight-knit group at St. Mary's. If you want to be anonymous and you don't want the faculty to know who you are, don't come to St. Mary's. This is not the place for you, okay? But being that small, tight-knit group, we get to know each other, and we're not going to turn away our students, after they leave. I just got off email with a student who graduated 12 years ago. And, she just finished telling me all about her life for the last 2 years, which was the last time we had connected. But yeah, that's who St. Mary's is. This small group of faculty and students and staff who all get to know each other and help each other out. We're tough. We have a really high bar in our classroom, but we offer a lot of assistance in getting over that bar, and a lot of help along the way. I won't sugarcoat anything. I'll tell it the way it is, but I'll keep on telling you how to make your dreams into reality. So I think at this point, I should answer some questions. I see we have one thing in chat.
That's just me
Oh,
welcoming questions. So
all
if
right.
there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will definitely have Andy answer them. But to get you started, what types of school or which schools tend to be popular for St. Mary's grads? What schools in the region or nationwide? Do you see it there?
Well, all over. Of course, Maryland is number one, except for vet school, because it's Virginia Tech is Virginia, Maryland's veterinary school. So those schools our Maryland residents are going to get in-state tuition at. So the in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition, it's huge. It's about half the price. So last cycle, I had two students who were applying to vet school. Both applied to Cornell and if you know veterinary medicine, Cornell is top of the heap. It's one of the best vet schools in the world, and I'm not saying that just because I grew up in Ithaca, walking distance to the vet school. It really is hard to get into the Cornell vet school. They accepted our top, they're always going to be a ranking there, okay, and they will see it. We don't rank our students, but they'll see those things, and both of these students were just outstanding candidates. They accepted one and put the other on a wait list, and the one they accepted thought about it, but she wants to be just a practicing vet in the area. And when she just ran the numbers, she decided Virginia Tech's going to be half the price of Cornell. So she declined Cornell, and the next day they took our other student off the wait list, and she's at Cornell this year. So our students get into, it's just all of the schools. I'd say the number one places outside of the in-state Maryland schools, Virginia, because we get a lot of students who are Virginia residents, so they like to go to the Virginia schools for their in-state tuition, and likewise with New York and Philadelphia, and then next, or actually above those, California. For some reason, we attract a lot of students from California. They all seem to be interested in sailing, I noticed. But that's where a good number of our students also end up going. But they're all over. They're just, they go everywhere. Especially the schools that have taken St. Mary's students, they realize that St. Mary's GPA is not inflated. So Maryland, a few years ago, Maryland had 3 St. Mary's students that all finished in the top 10 of their medical school class. 3 of our students in a single year. And their GPAs were probably lower than a lot of the other people that were in that class. So yeah, these schools know that it's not easy to get A's
Yeah.
at St. Mary's. And I'm not saying they're going to cut you slack, and I'll still push you to get the A's. But our students have gone out and proven themselves, all over the place.
Don't be scared, y'all. We have a question from Henry. At what point should a student contact you about starting their, telling you that they're interested in medicine?
The earlier, the better. Okay. I have started working with high school students who have said, I'm going to St. Mary's and I'm interested in medicine. And, I've got information sheets on all of the professions anyone has ever inquired about. Okay. So if you hit something that nobody else has asked me about, I might not have all the answers, but we will find the answers and we will write a sheet up that has the Reader's Digest version of what you need to do to get into this program. But it's pretty extensive at this. But I want to know right off the bat. So a lot of it's sort of pep talk, and you're going to have ups and downs with your courses. And one of the things I'm doing early on is assuring, okay, this isn't quite good enough yet, but you've got a long ways to go and you're not sunk your first year. Okay. Figure out how to reassess the way you're preparing for these courses and do things differently. They're looking for improvement. So that's the typical, Andy or Dr. Koch pep talk that I give so much to first and early on second year students. Second year students, I'm working with a bit more closely because they really have to start getting their files together. And it's in your junior year. We are best buddies. We spend a lot of time either post-pandemic in my office, on Zoom, it doesn't matter. But that's where you're putting your application together, because to apply for these most of the postgraduate health fields, you're going to be applying in the summer between your junior and senior year, hopefully getting interviews during your senior year, accepted hopefully in your senior year, and then you start to go. And if things aren't working out, that's where we're spending a lot of time looking at what to do to make things work out. Okay. Yeah.
Quickly, before we start our transition, could you just let us know, is pre-vet considered medicine?
Yes, yes. So like I said, the three professions that really are looking at St. Mary's students having gone through HSAC is vet, MD, and dentistry. Those are the three that really say, oh, you went to St. Mary's, they offer a committee letter. And if you don't have a committee letter, they're going to say, why don't you have a committee letter if you came from a school that offers one of those? The other professions, pharmacy, these things I can advise, and I can help in getting your file together. And if I know you really well, I can write a letter of recommendation, but they're not looking for those committee letters like I talked about.
Aurora, I'm going to ask you to pop on and ask a question that both of you might be able to answer. I know that in STEM and our science courses, they have a pretty strict set of courses that you take each semester, but that can kind of impair you from going abroad. Do students who are pre-vet, pre-medicine, pre-dentistry able to go abroad with the curriculum that we have here?
Yeah, well, let me just start with a couple of examples. I know Aurora will talk about the James Cook School in Australia. That's really popular with the biology majors who are with the biology majors anyways, but certainly has been absolutely no problem for those who do do their study abroad there and take courses. And then also, I've seen volunteer a lot of times at the hospital nearby James Cook. I don't know if it's actually associated with the university. I think it is. But that's worked really well. Chemistry and biochemistry is a little more strict, but we've had students, one did a semester at Edinburgh. She's actually the one I talked about earlier that I just was emailing back and forth. And she was on track to do MD, and she was certainly a very strong candidate and would have had no problems doing it. But she decided she didn't really want to practice medicine as much as advocate for health. So she eventually took a different pathway. But she was a biochemistry major and was able to get in biochemistry 1, I believe it was, in Edinburgh, and stay on track. So yeah, we work with our students. It's challenging in chemistry, but it's not impossible.
Aurora, if you can talk about what you see on your end, and then if you want to jump into your presentation, that'd be great.
Good, thank you. Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Aurora Margarita Goldkamp, and I'm the Director of International Education at St. Mary's. So first, to touch on this topic before I bring up my presentation, we do want to find every student who wants to go abroad a way to do that. And another way to really make sure that's a possibility for you is to start planning early so that you can make sure that you will get all the courses you need in, or even kind of squeeze them in while you're on campus at St. Mary's, or even do a summer program abroad so that you don't have to stress out about what semesters you might miss on campus. So even if you are a STEM student, really a health sciences student, we will find a way to get you an international experience if that's what you want. So now what I'm going to do is share a presentation that I have. So let me just pull it up and kind of just give you the rundown on what study abroad is and how you can start thinking about it. So what I'm going to talk about is why you might want to study abroad, what our programs are, what the different types of programs really mean, some places that we offer, and we did already talk a little bit about majors and study abroad, but we'll touch base on that again. And then really some details about how to get started and where to go to find more information and get in touch with our office. And so I know I introduced myself, but I do want to say that I remember how excited I was about study abroad when I was going to college. And my family was really influential in that path that I took. My dad had studied abroad in Paris for a year, and I ended up kind of following in his footsteps and eventually going back to work in France. I also studied in Mexico. And then my mom had Italian family, and she really worked with me to get us dual citizenship. And so I've also worked in Italy for a few years, actually at a program that we have as an approved program here at St. Mary's, Perugia in Italy at the Umbra Institute. So that's always a joy to me to be able to talk about that. So I'm hoping if there's any families sitting with you, for this talk tonight, that you can always turn to them for inspiration and support along the way for this adventure. And let's see here. So what we do on campus is we provide support to any students who are planning to study abroad, then while you're abroad and when you come back. And we also manage incoming international students. So we have exchange students, we have 4-year degree seeking students from all over the world, and our office helps them along the way as well. We also advise on some really important kind of scholarships and awards and internships that aren't really study abroad, but that can help support your study abroad or even get you abroad postgraduate, like Fulbright. So you can always come to our office for that as well. And a really big part of our job, especially in the last couple of years, has been maintaining a safe an academically rigorous program portfolio. So we do evaluate our programs, especially during the pandemic, with risk assessment and just making sure that not only is the location you're going safe, but the program has great staff on the ground who will really support you along the way. And yeah, we promote international education as a whole on campus. You'll definitely hear about us during your time at St. Mary's. Now, I'm super biased and passionate about international education, but these are some compelling reasons that you might want to study abroad. You get the chance to immerse yourself in unique cultures, and it really impacts everyone differently, but I haven't seen a student come back who hasn't been changed by this opportunity. And along the way, you get to gain some really valuable skills that you can even put on your resume and talk about into your interviews. And we talk about that in our reentry workshop too. And of course, this helps you along the path to graduation. We want every credit you take to be able to be peer-approved for transfer credit, to really get you that credit, help especially with your major. We'll talk about what your major is and what programs might be a best fit for that credit as well. And of course, it's going to increase your confidence and independence and even the skills that you build applying for study abroad opportunities will really help you grow as a student and as a person. So we have a bunch of different program types, and these can vary from semester, year long. We also can advise on some summer programs, but to start off, if we're saying that a program is a St. Mary's program or an approved program, what that means is that it's on a list of 20 to 25 programs that we have for semester and year long options where we've already kind of vetted them rigorously. And so we've allowed that any aid that you have, for example, federal, state, institutional aid should be able to be applied to tuition and fees for that program, and that the credits should be able to transfer back pretty easily. So it's always a safe bet to start with our approved list and look at the program options that we have and see if one of those would be good for you. We also have study tours. What are study tours? You'll probably hear about these a lot. They are short-term faculty-led programs. So a professor from St. Mary's will take a group of students abroad for 1 to 4 weeks over a break and teach a specific course that really focuses on that local culture and often is touring around a bit. And so you'll earn 4 credits for that. And they rotate every year. So we're hoping next summer to offer, we're hoping to run and fill and get enough students. And hopefully the situation abroad will be better by next summer. We've got Brazil, which is new, and Belize, which is a new field school for ethnography. And we also have our famous Greece tour. So that's probably, what we'll run next summer. And then the next summer, we might have some other options. In the past, we've had Thailand, England. We've even had, India. There's just a whole bunch that rotate in and out. So keep your eyes out for those. And then if none of these options are best fit for you, or if there's a very niche program with one of our partners that you'd rather do and it's not on our list, then there is a process for helping you get approved for a non-St. Mary's program. And so you just need to get started a little earlier on that so that we can evaluate that and help you make sure you meet deadlines. It takes a bit longer, but usually federal aid can still apply. Usually state and institutional aid won't go with you for those. But we're happy to advise on those as well as the shorter term summer programs that are very popular options for students that aren't just study tours, but other programs with our partners. And where do we have programs? We have them all over. So pre-pandemic, which is the last time we had students abroad, we had students go to Morocco, we had students in Ecuador, Slovenia, Italy, England, Ireland, Australia, just all over the place, China, Japan. So we have quite a variety, and we have them in English-speaking countries, and then we have them in non-English speaking countries. So we can kind of find something that will work for many different language speakers. So very exciting stuff. And you can go to our website, which I'll tell you about later, and look at the specifics. And we talked about this at the start, but what majors can study abroad? You can go abroad no matter what major you are, but again, it is better to start planning earlier to really make sure that you stay on your path to graduation and that we can find you the best time and location for you to go earn the credits you need to earn. Now, I would love to share how to get started if you're interested in this. Our website has so much information, and I like to point out a couple of things that's really available on our website. So first of all, every program has their own page, and we have a drop-down menu that you can see all of the listings at once. And each program page has their own budget. This is something that's really great to look at early on and with your family. And it breaks down costs, and it says billable costs and non-billable costs. Now, billable costs are what we will put on your student portal and bill you, and that includes tuition and program fees. And that is also the amount to which we can usually apply aid. But there are other costs to consider, like personal and travel expenses and passports and visas and stuff like that. So we also put an estimate of non-billable expenses. And this will vary by program and vary by country due to academic costs and living costs as well. So it's always good to check that out together with your family and do it early. And we have lots of good financial tips, how to fund your experience, what scholarships are available, especially some really good government ones for study abroad. Although we will make sure that you meet with the Office of Student Financial Aid Assistance before you go abroad, and a bunch of other offices too. But we have some good information to get started on thinking about how you can fund study abroad. And really important in this day and age, we have health and safety resources and support. And it's good to know that every student who goes abroad will be enrolled in our international medical insurance and will have the program support on the ground as well as the support with our office when they're abroad. So I think it's great to just a note to any families or parents who are here right now, it's really good to kind of look at these program pages together and start to listen with an open mind about any plans that you might be making together. And for the students here tonight, I'd love you to start brainstorming what your personal and academic and even professional interests and goals might be, because employers love to see that you've studied abroad. They did a survey with 116 international companies who said that 60% of them thought study abroad was something that really made applicants stand out. And 95% of students who have studied abroad said that it really helped them in their careers down the line. So this is something that can really not only impact your path even after college, but it's good to start planning now about it. And we encourage you all to make appointments with me, with our office. And we have Zoom appointments, as well as we'll have in-person appointments too when you get to campus. So I would really look forward to speaking with you one-on-one. And usually students start planning about a year ahead of time. So you can look at deadlines on the website and just start planning when you want to talk to us about it. And you'll be eligible for study abroad after your first year. So students even do summer programs after freshman year. And most students go abroad junior year and some sophomore year, actually. So I have a list here of questions that are asked quite frequently that I wanted to put in front of you in case you're still wondering any. So one, of course, I don't want to take too long with these, so I'll go pretty quickly. But when should you start thinking about going abroad? Now is a great time. I'm so glad that you're here listening to this. And are there eligibility requirements? Yes, so there is a GPA requirement for study abroad. It's 2.5 for a semester program and 2.0 for a study tour, but some of our programs have their own GPA requirements, like our Oxford program is quite rigorous. And so you would do best to check each program page for the details. We talked about the budgets that are available on each program page and the billable and non-billable costs. So really that varies, but our goal is to make it the most affordable experience that we can. Some of our programs even cost the same or even less than staying on campus for a semester. So that's definitely worth checking out. How do you choose the best fit program? So we do have different kinds of programs. Provider programs are very well supported. They often cost a bit more, but that's because they have excursions and field trips and orientations and emergency support all really built into that program. And then we also have our direct enroll and our exchange programs. Direct enroll, you'll just be a visiting international student. And so it's really great for independent students and a really immersive experience. And exchange is very similar, but we also have an agreement with those institutions where they send students to us too. And so you might actually take classes with students from other countries, which is really cool. This year, you might be able to meet our German student and our Slovenian student who are hopefully finally coming to study for a semester at St. Mary's. So it's very exciting. And we talked a little bit about the affordability question, but we do have that list of resources on our website. So we're happy to advise you on that too. And I want to be very clear that you do not have to know another language to go abroad. I encourage you to learn one. And in fact, we might make you take a language course if you go to certain countries and haven't taken the language, but you do not have to have any background in anything other than English to study abroad. And this is similar to kind of thinking about health careers. Athletes also have some challenges finding the right time to go abroad and trying not to miss out on seasons. But if you're an athlete, we can also help you out, maybe find you a summer program, or maybe find you a program that has a great opportunity to train or be part of a local team that will keep you in shape for the next season. And is it safe? So we do admit that study abroad carries its own risks, just like any travel does or everyday life here in the US too. But we do, again, evaluate our programs and locations. And we really prioritize health and safety. And this has become very, very clear during the pandemic. We are slowly reopening study abroad this year, but so far we have canceled it up until this fall. And I did talk about when students go abroad, but when we're looking at fall versus spring, it's pretty an equal spread for which semester. And I do want to mention that you would need a passport and then probably also a student visa, depending on where you go. So it's always good to plan ahead early so we can let you know that you'll need to kind of get started on that too when you're applying. Now, our deadlines will be for spring programs, October 15th usually, and for fall programs, March 15th usually. But I say usually because our partners often have their own deadlines and we have to work with both application processes at once. But just keep that in mind if you want to start thinking ahead and making an appointment with me. This is our information. Again, this is our website. So please do note it or just search for international education on St. Mary's General website. We have a lot of good information, like I said. And we also have an Instagram, which we'll be posting to you a bit more when school starts again. But you can see some really cool photos that students took when they were abroad and submitted to our photo contest and that kind of thing. And we'll let you know when events are happening and info sessions as well on Instagram. So I would like to see if there are any questions that I haven't yet answered. And let me stop sharing and take a look at the chat, and feel free to put something in right now.
I'll get it started. I know that some students want to do an internship sometimes during the semester, and they also want to study abroad. Is there any way to combine that experience?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So yes, there are many possibilities here. Now, one really cool one is that a couple of our programs abroad include an internship component, and you can get credit for that internship. For example, our Ecuador program, it starts with a month-long internship. And you get credit like a course, basically. And then you move to the Universidad de Cuenca in Cuenca, where you take a semester's worth of classes after that. But there are some of our programs and some partners that we work with, but that aren't technically approved programs that have internships for academic credit while you take classes at the same time. And we can help advise you on that. We also have some summer internships with our partners that we can help you apply for. Sometimes we have a Shanghai internship that is run by some faculty on campus. And this past year, we were lucky enough to see the development of virtual global internships, where you can take an internship as a course for credit, and that will be internationally placed with an organization abroad and supported by one of our partner companies. And yet you can still live on campus and take a few courses. So that's usually for after your first year again, but would be really, really excited to see students continue to do that even as the pandemic goes away. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Oh, I see a question. So I don't know if it was directly to me, but I'm just going to share it. I just won't say who said it. So it was, which country was the best place for you to study abroad from? So I don't know if that was like in my experience or in general, but I personally can answer it from my experience. I have to say that I really enjoy, every time I went abroad, it was different, and I was different. And the programs I did were shaped differently. So it's hard to answer what the best place was, but I would say that when I had a grasp of the local language and the opportunity to develop it better by being there, that made the experience so much better. But I'd also say that Italy was absolutely amazing to live in because everyone was so wonderful and the food was so delicious. And I learned Italian. I didn't go not knowing Italian for that one. I went and I learned it there. So hard to tell, but I'm really excited to talk about a lot of the programs we have are in countries where I've been, not all of them. So I'm always happy to kind of talk about my experiences and also connect you with our ambassadors who are alumni and have studied abroad themselves. I want to talk about their specific experience too.
You touched on it earlier, but what kind of support do you provide for students who either are struggling with, just being away from home, homesickness, struggling with language, or like Oxford, the program is pretty difficult and they're struggling academically?
Yeah, that's a good question because it's really important. It happens. Everyone will struggle at some point, and that will happen when you go to college during that transition and when you study abroad during that transition. So what we like to do is talk about it, set proper expectations before you go. We have pre-departure orientation meetings that are mandatory where we talk about culture shock and we talk about the resources that will be available when that happens on the ground. Our international medical insurance should also provide coverage for mental health support. And we encourage anyone who has already been in contact with a counselor or a therapist to not stop that simply because you're going abroad, to find other solutions when you go abroad. We work with a lot of schools that have their own wellness centers. And so if you're feeling a little down or lonely, they often have resources on site on the ground where they can connect you to people to talk to or kind of get you out and about and doing some activities with other locals and other students there who might be feeling the same way. And we also encourage you, we check in with you when you're abroad and we encourage you to tell us how it's going. Now, we have had students have some academic challenges and we've worked with the directors on site to figure out the best solution to move forward. Maybe that means dropping a class, so that you can focus on the other ones, or maybe it means getting it incomplete and trying to finish the credit for that class, a little slower than you planned. But we found that a lot of the programs we work with are used to hosting Americans and understand that there will be a shock that comes not just from culture of the country, but also different learning styles that there are over in different countries. And so they're pretty patient and helpful for our students who are abroad.
Thank you. I'll open it up to any other questions, any for Dr. Koch or Aurora before we finish for the night.
Well, I'd like to just add a little bit as far as the advising aspect. Yeah, last year, pre-pandemic, just before the pandemic, I had a student who was a junior getting ready to apply to medical school. We already had Zoom set up before the pandemic, and we did numerous chats. She was down in South America, but it didn't slow down her application process at all. And I just found out a little while ago that she was accepted all over the place, but she's going to go to UC Davis Medical School in California. So,
Nice.
yeah, even though you can go halfway across the world. I had an advising appointment with a student in Australia when he was at James Cook. And so, yeah, it's easy, especially with today's technology,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
make things a little more normal.
I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We will put this Hawk Talk up on our YouTube page if you want to review it later and get more information, or feel free to reach out to either Aurora or Dr. Koch directly so that you can get those questions that you might have asked. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll stay on for a minute or two just to make sure you have any personal questions that you might want to ask. But thank you all and have an excellent night.